event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The celebration of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the National Union of Algerian Peasants comes amid the commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Glorious Liberation Revolution. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense Army Chief of Staff Army General Said Changri has been received in Kuwait by the Deputy Prime Defense and Interior Minister of the State of Kuwait, Sheikh Fahd Youssef Saoud Al-Sabah. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has affirmed that it is high time that a ceasefire is enforced in Gaza and humanitarian aid be allowed in rapidly. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The celebration of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the National Union of Algerian Peasants comes amid the commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Glorious Liberation Revolution. The President of the Republic congratulated farmers on this occasion, highlighting the state's appreciation for their hard work in the service of their country and people.
تأتي هذه الاحتفالية بالذكرى 50 لتأسيس الاتحاد الوطني للفلاحين الجزائريين في أجواء الذكرى 70 لاندلاع ثورة التحرير المجيدة. وهذه المناسبة تذكرنا بمعاناة أريافنا وبوادينا وتضحيات أهلنا البسطاء الشرفاء. تذكرنا بغيرة الرجال على الأرض وعلى شرف الجزائر، وهي غيرة أصيلة ومتجدرة في بلاد المجد والخير والمقاومة. فتحية تقدير لكل عمال الأرض، وتحية عرفان للسواعد المباركة وما تنتجه من خيرات.
The President said the country has made food security a strategic bet that must be won in a world where food has become the most powerful and influential weapon. He said farmers have shown in the exceptional circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic a high awareness of the nature of the challenge and worked on providing agricultural products at a time when the world was suffering from an unprecedented paralysis which led to a serious shortage of basic food supplies.
لقد جعلت بلادنا من الأمن الغذائي رهانا استراتيجيا يتوجب علينا كسبه في عالم أصبح فيه سلاح الغذاء أقوى الأسلحة وأشدها تأثيرا.
The President then recalled the decisions and measures taken by the state to improve the agricultural sector. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the Higher Council of the Judiciary, has chaired the opening ceremony of the new judicial year 2024 to 2025, during which he reaffirmed his commitment to bringing together all the socio-professional conditions guaranteeing independent and impartial justice. Assa Bekar has the details in this report.
In a speech made on the occasion, the President of the Republic affirmed that the opening of the judicial year is an opportunity to perpetuate an annual tradition that reflects the nobility of the mission of the judiciary and the position of the independent judiciary concerned with protecting the law in an Algeria that has built a republican judicial system strong with the trust of the people and the contribution of loyal and honest women and men, notably magistrates, who strive to guarantee fair justice before which all citizens are equal. He also stressed his full support for the legal staff at all levels so that they fulfill their missions in the best possible conditions.
أجدد التزامي أمام ممثلي سلك القضاء أسرة القضائية على حل كل المشاكل المطروحة للقاضي في أداء مهامه وفي حياته الشخصية مع أبنائه ليتفرغ كليا لممارسة مهنته النبيلة. وأؤكد مرة أخرى أننا سنظل نسير على نفس النهج لتسخير المزيد من الإمكانيات وتوفير كافة الشروط المهنية والاجتماعية للسيدات والسادة القضاة من أجل عدالة مستقلة ونزيهة.
The President of the Republic recalled having stressed on several occasions that deep reforms undertaken in the justice sector must be based on a clear vision, starting from the need to create a climate that allows the judiciary to carry out its missions with fluidity, competence, and rigor. The President spoke about the steps taken to restore trust in the state and consolidate the rules of governance since the enforcement of the new constitution, under which the status of justice has been strengthened and the independence of the sector has been consolidated. The protective measures for civil servants and managers are guaranteed as long as it is an administrative or management error or a bad assessment, provided, however, that no one benefits from it, neither them nor their relatives or friends.
خذيت قرار ومنشور رئاسي لتفسير بعض الأوضاع أن الموظف والمسير له الحق في الغلطة مثل ما نقولوا الإدارية وسوء تقدير بعض الأمور، ولكن شرط أن لا يستفيد لا هو ولا محيطه ولا أصدقائه ولا أي كان من هذا الخطأ التسييري، فله الحماية كاملة. أشير بأن في ظرف صعب مرت به البلاد كانت فيه العصابة من خلال أبواقها في الداخل وفي الخارج تسمم الأوضاع تأثيرا على المسيرين النزهاء في هذه البلاد. وصل بهم الحد إلى القول لو تمضي أي وثيقة ستجد نفسك في الحراش، وكان صعب إقناع المسيرين بأن لهم الحماية المطلقة من طرف الدولة ومن طرف العدالة، شرط أن يكونوا نزهاء، ونحن نعرفهم أنهم أغلبية ساحقة نزهاء.
He then stressed his will to modernize the legal system, strengthen the protection of magistrates, consolidate the independence of the Higher Council of Magistrates, and provide the necessary legal tools to defend it. The President of the Republic assured that he fully trusts the competence and commitment of the magistrates to fully shoulder their responsibilities with honor and conscience, anxious to promote Algerian justice. The President of the Republic recalled having ensured in recent years that the government adapts to national legal system through the amendment of certain texts and the adoption of new laws in order to honor its commitments to the people, particularly with regard to the moralization of public life, and this by combating corruption and abuses while initiating other in-depth reforms to meet the current challenges on the economic level, starting with the improvement of the business climate and economic performance. Recalling that he had put among his priorities the revision of legal texts relating to economic activities in order to simplify procedures, facilitate recourse to justice, and establish permanent legal security. The President of the Republic also praised the commitment of the bodies within the justice sector, their concern for ethical and professional duty, and their awareness of the responsibility placed upon them to uphold the law.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, also praised the support of honest men around the world for the Palestinian people and for the law, especially after calling last year on freedom-loving men around the world to bring an action before the International Criminal Court, ICC, against the Zionist entity for the barbaric crimes committed against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. President Tebboune recalled his call launched on all honest and freedom-loving men around the world to come to the aid of the defenseless people subjected to massacres in Gaza, in Palestine. Thank God this call has been heard, as evidenced by the mobilization of honest men across the 5 continents and the bringing of criminals before international justice, thanking men around the world who support the Palestinian people and who defend the law, notably the brotherly South Africans.
من هذا المكان المحترم وأكاد أن أقول مقدس قانونيا كان فيه نداء لكل النزهاء والشرفاء في العالم استغاثة للشعب الأعزل في غزة في فلسطين التي يذبح أبنائها في مجازر. الحمد لله سمع النداء وكانت وقفة الشرفاء عبر القارات ال5 في العالم وأحيل المجرمون أمام القضاء الدولي. شكرا لكل النزهاء والرجال الواقفين في العالم مع الشعب الفلسطيني ومع الحق والقانون، وعلى رأسهم إخواننا وأشقاؤنا في جنوب أفريقيا.
The Minister of Justice, Keeper of the Seals, Mr. Lutfi Boujemha, for his part, also seized the opportunity to thank the President of the Republic for putting the justice sector on the top of his priorities.
I seize this opportunity to express my deepest gratitude to the President of the Republic for the great interest he has shown to the justice sector, which reaffirms his unwavering conviction in the important status of the judiciary and its central role in social building up. The members of the justice sector greatly appreciate this high interest and reaffirm their determination to do everything possible to fulfill their historic responsibilities in this building up and to live up to the honor and the great weight of the trust placed upon them in order to instill in citizens a sense of security and guarantee the stability of society.
Let's note that this came at the opening ceremony of the new judicial year 2024 to 2025. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Army Chief of Staff Army General Saeed Changreha has been received in Kuwait by the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Defense and Interior of the State of Kuwait, Sheikh Fahd Youssef Saud Sabah. The meeting, held in the presence of the Deputy Army Chief of Staff, senior Kuwaiti Army officials, the Algerian Ambassador to Kuwait, Mr. Abdelkader Qasimi Al-Hassani, and members of the Algerian military delegation, was devoted to assessing bilateral cooperation between Algeria and Kuwait, who share strong and distinguished brotherly ties embodied by their moderate and honourable positions on international and regional issues. During the meeting, Army General Changreha expressed his consideration and gratitude for the warm welcome extended to him and his delegation, hoping that the visit would contribute to deepening cooperation between the two countries. The Army General conveyed to Sheikh Fahd Youssef Saud Sabah the greetings of the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense Abdelmajid Tebboune, reiterating his aspiration to reinforce cooperation between the two armies. The Kuwaiti Deputy Prime Defense and Interior Minister, for his part, expressed satisfaction at the level of understanding that characterizes the relations between the two countries on a number of regional and international issues, which he hoped could be extended to other areas in the future. The Army General also had talks with the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Kuwaiti Army, Major General Sheikh Sabah Al-Jabr Al-Ahmed Al-Sabah, devoted to a way of strengthening relations. The Army General then visited the Mubarak Al-Abdullah Inter-Army School, where he received exhaustive explanations of this important military training institution. And now Algeria was elected Vice President of the 29th session of the Conference of the States Parties to the Chemical Weapons Convention representing the African region. Algeria is taking part in the session with a high-level delegation consisting of the President of the National Authority in charge of implementing the Chemical Weapons Convention at national level, representatives of the Prime Ministry, the Ministry of Energy, the National Institute of Forensic and Criminology of the National Gendarmerie, as well as Algeria's permanent representation to the OPCW. At an official ceremony, the National Institute of Forensic and Criminology City of The Hague Prize for the 2024 was awarded to the Gendarmerie Nationals in recognition of its outstanding contribution to achieving the organization's goal of a world free of chemical weapons. The Algerian Institute was awarded the prize jointly with the Indian Chemical Council. For the Director General of the OPCW, the prize reflected the vital importance of cooperation between stakeholders in achieving the objective of a world free of chemical weapons. Algeria has affirmed that the warrants of arrest issued by the International Criminal Court (ICC) for two Israeli senior officials on charge of war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza constituted a major step contributing to ending the end of several decades of impunity. Addressing a meeting of the UN Security Council devoted to the situation in the Middle East, Algeria's deputy representative to the UN, Nassim Gawawi, said the ICC's decision had given hope to the Palestinians and to all free men in the world. The diplomat said that any attempt to protect the occupier would but encourage him to continue to destabilize the Middle East and thus implicitly approve the extension of the conflict.
أجدد إدانة الجزائر لسياسة المحتل الإسرائيلي.
Algeria condemns the policies of the Israeli occupier seeking to expand settlements in the West Bank and threatening to annex it in a blatant and clear violation of the international law, especially Resolution 2334. We call for respecting the current historic and legal status of Jerusalem and the Jordanian custodianship. We strongly condemn the growing settler terrorism against Palestinians and infringements against their property with the protection of occupation authorities. This terrorism will undoubtedly grow. Yes, it will undoubtedly grow given the continued arming of settler gangs and the decision to stop administrative arrests against them.
Algeria's representative recalled that the region was at a crossing point and urged the Council's members to choose between finding a lasting solution or letting the logic of impunity prevail. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has affirmed that it is high time that a ceasefire be enforced in the Gaza Strip and a humanitarian aid be allowed in rapidly. In a statement made on the occasion of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people celebrated on November 29th, he stated that this year was particularly harmful as the basic objectives set for 2023 were far from being fulfilled. He deplored that 1 year after the Israeli attacks were launched on Gaza, the territory was in ruins and more than 43,000 Palestinians were killed. He deplored the disastrous situation prevailing in the enclave, saying that nothing could justify the humanitarian crisis that is worsening day by day. This came as all attempts to secure ceasefire in Gaza has failed to produce any progress. Evoking the negotiations, the representative of the Palestinian Hamas movement, Youssef Hamdan, had this to say.
Regarding the negotiations file, our position is clear. We have dealt with responsibility and seriousness, and we remain open to any proposal that stops the aggression against our Palestinian people and leads to the withdrawal of the occupation from the Gaza Strip, the opening of the crossing points, and the entry of aid to rebuild what has been destroyed by the occupation army. If this is satisfied, we will move to a prisoner deal in which our prisoners will be released. What is being proposed to us does not lead to an end to the aggression against our people, nor the withdrawal of the occupation from the Gaza Strip.
That was the representative of the Palestinian Hamas movement, Youssef Hamdan. In Lebanon, at least 36 people have been killed and 17 others wounded in airstrikes carried out by the Israeli army against the southern and eastern parts of the country. Meanwhile, lawyer Gilles Dever has died following a long illness. Late Mr. Dever was known for his fierce defense of international law in favor of the Palestinian and the Sahrawi causes. He was an advocate of fair causes and human rights. With this last piece of news comes the end of our news bulletin. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. Welcome to your program, Inspiring Figures. Aristotle was an ancient Greek philosopher and scientist who is still considered one of the greatest thinkers in politics, psychology, and ethics. When Aristotle turned 17, he enrolled in Plato's academy. In 338, he began tutoring Alexander the Great. In 335, Aristotle founded his own school in Athens, where he spent most of the rest of his life studying, teaching, and writing. Aristotle was born in circa 384 BC in Stagira, a small town on the northern coast of Greece that was once a seaport. Aristotle's father, Nicomachus, was court physician to the Macedonian king Amyntas II, although Nicomachus died when Aristotle was just a young boy. Aristotle remained closely affiliated with and influenced by the Macedonian court for the rest of his life. Aristotle wrote an estimated 200 works, most in the form of notes and manuscript drafts, touching on reasoning, rhetoric, politics, ethics, science, and psychology. They consist of dialogues, records of scientific observations, and systematic works. His student, Theophrastus, reportedly looked after Aristotle's writings and later passed them to his own student, Neleus, who stored them in a vault to protect them from moisture until they were taken to Rome and used by scholars there. Of Aristotle's estimated 200 works, only 31 are still in circulation. Politics is a scientific study of writing and poetry where Aristotle observes, analyzes, and defines mostly tragedy and epic poetry. Compared to philosophy, which presents ideas, poetry is an imitative use of language, rhythm, and harmony that represents objects and events in the world. Aristotle posited. His book explores the foundation of story-making, including character development, plot, and storyline. In his book, Metaphysics, Aristotle clarified the distinction between matter and form. To Aristotle, matter was the physical substance of things, while form was the unique nature of a thing that gave it its identity. In his book, Politics, Aristotle examined human behavior in the context of society and government. Aristotle believed the purpose of government was make it possible for citizens to achieve virtue and happiness. Intended to help guide statesmen and rulers, Politics explores, among other themes, how and why cities come into being, the roles of citizens and politicians, wealth and the class system, the purpose of the political system, types of governments and democracies, and the roles of slavery and women in the household and society. In rhetoric, Aristotle observes and analyzes public speaking with scientific rigor in order to teach readers how to become more effective speakers. Aristotle believed rhetoric was essential in politics and law and helped defend truth and justice. Good rhetoric, Aristotle believed, could educate people and encourage them to consider both sides of a debate. Aristotle's work explored how to conduct an argument and maximize its effect, as well as fallacious reasoning to avoid it. Aristotle composed works on astronomy, including on the heavens, and earth sciences, including meteorology. By meteorology, Aristotle didn't simply mean the study of weather. His more expansive definition of meteorology included all the affectations we may call common to air and water, and the kinds and parts of the earth and the affectations of its parts. In meteorology, Aristotle identified the water cycle and discussed topics ranging from natural disasters to astrological events. Although many of his views on the earth were controversial at the time, they were readopted and popularized during the late Middle Ages. In On the Soul, Aristotle examines human psychology. Aristotle's writings about how people perceive the world continue to underlie many principles of modern psychology. Aristotle's work on philosophy influenced ideas from late antiquity all the way through the Renaissance. One of the main focuses of Aristotle's philosophy was his systematic concept of logic. Aristotle's objective was to come up with a universal process of reasoning that would allow man to learn every conceivable thing about reality. The initial process involved describing objects based on their characteristics, states of being, and actions. Although Aristotle was not technically a scientist by today's definitions, science was among the subjects that he researched at length during his time at his school. Aristotle believed that knowledge could be obtained through interacting with physical objects. He concluded that objects were made up of a potential that circumstances then manipulated to determine the object's outcome. He also recognized that human interpretation and personal associations played a role in our understanding of those objects. Aristotle's research in the sciences included a study of biology. He attempted, with some error, to classify animals into genera based on their similar characteristics. He further classified animals into species based on those that had red blood and those that did not. Marine biology was also an area of fascination for Aristotle through dissection. He closely examined the anatomy of marine creatures. In contrast to his biological classifications, his observations of marine life, as expressed in his books, are considerably more accurate. In 322 BC, just a year after he fled to Chalcis to escape prosecution under charges of impiety, Aristotle contracted a disease of the digestive organs and died. In the century following Aristotle's death, his works fell out of use, but they were revived during the 1st century. Over time, they came to lay the foundation of more than 7 centuries of philosophy. Aristotle's influence on Western thought in the humanities and social sciences is largely considered unparalleled, with the exception of his teacher Plato's contributions. 2 millennia strong academic practice of interpreting and debating Aristotle's philosophical works continues to endure.